Migrants must be let into Poland. The European Court of Human Rights ruled against Poland on April 4th after the country repeatedly deported 4 Tajik asylum seekers back across the border to Ukraine without allowing them to apply for asylum in Poland. The court argues that Poland had an obligation to let them in and stay in the country while their appeal was ongoing. Poland will be forced to pay the 4 men $13,000 each. The migrant crisis escalated in 2021, with tens of thousands of migrants flown from Africa and the Middle East by Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko trying to storm the border by force. The Poles held the line after deploying soldiers and water cannons, but was heavily criticized by Western mainstream media.
Poland has taken a rigid approach to ending the immigration crisis, plaguing its vicinity. In a time when immigration is an unending situation for some countries in Europe, causing an increase in criminality, Poland has put in place a permanent solution to end the immigration crisis that held its country bound for some years. Stay till the end as we uncover the measures Poland government used to curb and stop immigration in the country, leading to some controversial situations. Please take a second to subscribe to this channel to join the family. Let's dive right in.
What we're saying is send them back. Okay, simple as that. Poland is the only country in European Union which we haven't had even one terrorist attack. We don't have stabbings, we don't have rapes, we don't have all these really dangerous behaviors from migrants, illegal migrants. So our policy is very straight, zero tolerance. We built a beautiful wall on our border with Belarus, and there's no way anyone would enter Poland. When you see the data from Eurostat, not ours, from European Union, Poland is the safest country in Europe.
The Poland government has maintained its stance on not allowing immigrants into the country. For some years now, Poland has been facing immigration crisis, limiting the economy's productivity, prioritizing border security and national sovereignty. Despite the government's attempt to end immigration crisis in Poland, a lot of critics have come out to argue that the approach initiated by the Poland government to curb immigration neglects the humanitarian part of the migration issue and has failed to address the root cause of the immigration problem. This has brought a lot of controversy to the country, and the Human Rights Group and European Union didn't hesitate to show their displeasure on some of the measures the government of Poland implemented to stop the increase in immigration crisis in the country of Poland.
Is obligated to take a good chunk of refugees or face serious financial fines in thousands of dollars for every refugee they turn away.
These has become a serious issue for Poland as some critics criticize that Poland's approach has increased the crisis rather than solving it. The immigration situation is so complicated and complex that there are several opinions on the way Poland government handled the situation. Some of the approach or steps the Poland government took to reduce the influx of immigrants and refugees trooping into the country includes building a border wall with Belarus, deploying military personnel to the border, implementing strict asylum seekers policies, shortening the number of refugees accepted into the country, and introducing legal policies criminalizing illegal border crossing. While these measures have contributed to reducing immigration, it has also raised some concerns by the Human Rights Group and some part of the EU. They see it as a part of a border trend of anti-immigration sentiments in Eastern Europe, thinking about the underlying issues posing a threat to human rights, which includes lack of access to asylum seekers' procedures, pushbacks of refugees and immigrants at the border, human rights violations, detaining immigrants and refugees in poor conditions, and finally, the limitation of integration policies for accepted refugees and immigrants. Because of these reasons, the EU has also taken steps which includes urging Poland to allow asylum seekers into their country and launching infringement procedures. Any country in the EU is obligated to take in a good chunk of refugees or face serious financial fines and thousands of dollars for every refugee they turn away. This gave illegal migrants an excuse flood into Polish borders in an increasing manner, so much that Poland had to teach them a lesson, leaving them trapped in their borders. These was how they curbed the immigration crisis that was initially a problem in the country.
People in terrible circumstances, in the bitter cold, even reports that people have died. And that's why it is really so important. It's why the High Commissioner has spoken out. I know other UN agencies have spoken out really clearly about this, that the human rights of migrants and refugees have to come first. It is really important. They must be respected under international human rights and refugee law.
The human rights and the safety of refugees and migrants are paramount. And we do believe that we've said it many times that using refugees and asylum seekers and migrants to achieve political ends is unacceptable and it must stop. That's completely deplorable.
Despite the criticisms, several countries have expressed support for Poland's immigration policies, and some have also joined to implement similar measures to curbing immigration in their countries as well. Some of these countries include Hungary, Czech, Slovakia, Austria, and Italy. For Hungary, they adopted the strict immigration stance, backing Poland's measures in curbing immigration. Slovakia has also implemented more rigid immigration policies, using similar measures as Poland. The former government of Italy, led by Matteo Salvini, was a strong supporter of Poland's immigration policies. And for Czech Republic, the government has shown their support and also adopted similar approach to stopping the increase in immigration in their country. These 5 countries alongside Poland has formed an informal alliance within the EU, known as the Visegrad Group, V4. And they all maintain a unified stand on border control and immigration issues because most times the side effect on their country's economy is not so favorable.
And pushing them towards the EU. He denies that. Our correspondent Steve Rosenberg has this eyewitness account from the Belarus side of the border.
In the migrant camp, word had got out. They'd been told this was the moment to make it into the EU. Everyone here wanted to believe it was going to happen. And the Belarusian soldiers didn't try to stop them. In their thousands, they streamed towards the border crossing that leads from Belarus to Poland. And the closer they came, the more urgent it got. The last fence on the Belarus side swept away.
So after a week in the camp, the migrants are now pouring through right up to the checkpoint with Poland. They're determined to be let through to the European Union.
Attention, attention.
But it was no entry.
If you don't follow
Polish
the order,
police were out in force and standing firm.
All us baby crying for a milk, for a nappy. We don't have nothing. Please come and help these people, all guys.
The EU says Belarus is using migrants as a weapon against the West to pressure Europe, a form of hybrid warfare.
These people want a better life. They are desperate to get to the European Union.
When Belarus soldiers allowed thousands of immigrants from the Middle East and some from Afghanistan to cross over their border into the EU, the Polish police refused the immigrants' entry and they were all trapped on the last fence. Belarus president, who has the support of Russia's President Vladimir Putin, has been accused of perpetrating the crisis by bringing immigrants through the air and sending them towards the EU, denies this claim. But an eyewitness, who is a reporter, has this account of the immigration crisis. Take a look.
Word had got out. They'd been told this was the moment to make it into the EU. Everyone here wanted to believe it was going to happen. And the Belarusian soldiers didn't try to stop them. In their thousands, they streamed towards the border crossing that leads from Belarus to Poland. And the closer they came, the more urgent it got. The last fence on the Belarus side swept away.
So after a week in the camp, the migrants are now pouring through right up to the checkpoint with Poland. They're determined to be let through to the European Union.
attention, attention.
But it was no entry.
If you don't follow
Polish
the order,
police were out in force and standing firm.
All us baby.
According to the EU, they say Belarus is using migrants as weapons against the West to Europe. They feel it's not just an ordinary ploy to let the immigrants into the EU, but to spark a humanitarian crisis. Back at the camp, there were immigrants who confirmed that some Belarusian soldiers had helped some immigrants to cross the border to get to Poland, and so they cut the fence for them to pass in the night.
Union, which is right here. But the EU says that these migrants are being used, exploited by Belarus to spark a humanitarian crisis on the EU's doorstep.
Back in the camp, we heard stories of how Belarusian soldiers had helped some migrants try to cross illegally into Poland.
In the night, they told us, you will go to Poland. They cut the fence. The Belarusian cut for us, and we ran. We ran a lot, and then we hide ourselves in the forest. They see us and return back to the site. It is like a football game.
Although many of these migrants say they are escaping from the conflicts at home, spending thousands of dollars just to come over, only for them to get stuck by the border. The Poland government says no matter the reasons for the immigrants coming into their country, they still pose a threat to Poland. And that is why countries like Poland have implemented these measures to prevent the increase of crime and unforeseen events in the future, due to immigration crisis. But a lot of these migrants aren't giving up as they began to break down the fences, stopping them from entering Poland. Take a look.
Hours later, with tensions mounting, migrants start collapsing small trees onto the fence. Others, surprisingly well equipped, start cutting the wire with bolt cutters.
The Polish government reported that thousands of migrants are gathering close to the border post near Kistna. Then, few hours later, they begin to destroy small trees, while some others began to cut the fence wires with bolt cutters in an attempt to break the fence blocking them at the border. Without wasting time, the Polish government deployed 12,000 troops to patrol an exclusion zone that is situated along the border area. And a state of emergency has been proposed in Lithuania, a country located in the north area of the EU, and also deployed more soldiers to patrol its borders with Belarus.
Culmination of a Belarusian policy to weaponize migrant misery.
The Poland government say this is hybrid information warfare, which is the collaboration of the Belarusian policy to use migrants as weapons to punish neighboring countries supporting sanctions against the regime.
Literally stuck between Belarusian forces in balaclavas, pushing them one way, and Polish soldiers on the other side of the fence.
Poland has had to fight these wars in their border, still fighting and revolting against allowing migrants into their country. After suffering from major immigration crisis and finally finding a solution to curbing immigration crisis, Poland was just not having it again. Counties who have suffered from illegal immigration crisis have supported Poland in their fight, and you wouldn't really blame them for making their decisions. While EU says they feel this sudden immigration rush is an intentional plan by their enemies. Ahead of the upcoming elections to disorganize them, the vulnerable immigrants are not giving up and are doing everything to get into Poland.